This is It's Not in the Syllabus podcast, the how to's of a student beyond classroom walls. This is the podcast where you, yes, you, get to learn what they don't teach you at school and ace that test called life, or at least get a passing grade and get by. It's Not in the Syllabus is a podcast brought to you by the Adventist International Institute of Advanced Studies, together with the Student Association, where we feature stories by the students and for the students. Join us as we discover life lessons you'll surely need. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of It's Not in the Syllabus podcast. So we've had another theme for this month of December. So we will be talking about spiritual life, first things first. And for today's episode, it's a continuation from our personal devotional topic. So we will be talking about how to maintain spiritual discipline in a hustle culture. And I think a lot of us can relate to that topic. But before that, I would like to acknowledge our audience who have been sending in their comments, and we really appreciate it. And we thank you for letting us know that you appreciate the show. So I'll be reading some of them, very few. So here, one alumni have mentioned, I have been blessed listening to the podcast features at the It's Not in the Syllabus. God bless you. So thank you so much for letting us know. And one person also mentioned this is really helpful to everyone. Keep it coming. And they've been really enjoying the podcast. So these comments really matter. And if you can drop them at YouTube or if you listen on Spotify, we would love to hear them. Okay, so for today's guest, we have a legend from AIIAS just because he's been here for, I think, 17 years, right? Yeah. So we have here Mr. Pastor Adlai Wilfred Tornalejo. So he is currently taking a PhD in Religion Church History here at AIIAS. But before that, he had an experience of working as a college instructor at SPAC. So that's South Philippine Adventist College. That's in Davao del Sur for 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. And before that, he was in AIIAS. So actually, you were in and out AIIAS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Came here 2005. Of course, I was still a kid then, fourth grade, and then moved to AUP for academy, and then moved to MVC for college and things like that. So yes, I was in and out.
Okay. So AIIAS is a place na binabalikan-balikan mo. In English, it's a place that you always come back to.
Yes, but IS is home.
Okay, AIIAS is home. So yes, we have someone who have seen how AIIAS developed, transformed over the
Sort
years.
of over the past 17 years.
Yeah. So I think he's the best person to ask about AIIAS history also. So yeah, tell us, because our topic is, quite heavy at the same time, relatable. I believe our students, faculty, working professionals can all relate to what we call the hustle culture. Yeah, but how would you actually define that?
Well, I'm not sure if the definition of hustle culture has been clearly defined up to this point, only in this generation. But I believe from the words itself, hustle, you have to work,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes this is going overboards. Like you tend to overwork, you overachieve, or some things like this. But you are geared to achieve a certain goal or achieve a purpose. So this is hustle culture. So you are expected to actually just keep on working and working. I think very much it's pretty obvious how we see around in our world today. It's like we're always in a rush. We're always in a rush just because we want to get something. So that's basically hustle culture.
Okay. So if I were to summarize it in 3 words, that's like work is life.
Work is life, probably.
Yeah. Okay. And I think, so how we, about talking about spiritual discipline, do you think it's important? Or maybe we should, define
Yes.
what is spiritual discipline?
Yeah, spiritual discipline are actually habits that promote or develop spiritual growth, should I be saying. So these habits help you, or these habits are formed, or you are doing these things so that you will develop spiritual growth. So these are spiritual disciplines. So there are actually many.
Okay, can you share some examples?
A couple that I can think at the top of my head would be, of course, your personal prayer and meditation. Some would say, your journaling.
Okay.
That can actually also work. Yes, meditation you can separate, but as Seventh-day Adventist, we are kind of careful when we use that word meditation. But yes, you can do that too. And also, yeah, right, I already said, right? Your prayer,
Journaling.
your journaling, your Bible reading. Yeah, those are just the things that can come up the top of my head. But there are many others I think that you could actually do, and some would actually suggest incorporating things.
Okay,
Like,
can
so,
you expound on
so
those
like
things?
like of course you mix up things that you do. You can have your personal reflection at times. You can have your daily journal at times. But some would say it's too taxing. And of course, like we're dealing with hustle culture now. It's about providing time for yourself, right? So that you can actually do these things.
Yeah. Okay. I think if we actually also took like a step back, why would we need spiritual discipline in such a hustle culture? Perhaps, I mean, the assumption there actually is that there's a lot of things distracting us from, keeping that consistent, personal, intimate relationship with God. And given that, I know most of us are bombarded by this every day, but perhaps you can mention what do you think are the subtle and the obvious distractions that people of this generation face?
Okay, I will deal with this in two ways. I would be ideal and I would be practical.
Okay.
Ideal in the sense that as Christians, we need to exercise that spiritual discipline. I
Okay.
mean, it's a discipline in itself. It may be taxing. We may think that, think of it ideally, it may be taxing. Why do I have to do this on a daily basis, or why do I have to do this? Like, it becomes like already just for a momentum's sake, just so that you could start a day or things like that. But we have to do it. These are
Okay.
spiritual disciplines. That's
It's a
important.
must.
We take that because we're Christians. We believe in that. But on the practical side, yes, there are many things that distract us. Our work, even as people who are studying the Bible or things like this, that can, how do I say this? That can supersede, or like that can even go beyond our needs to um, deal personally or meditate personally on the Word of God or things like this to
Yeah.
develop spiritual discipline. So some would assume that theologians or people who serve consistently at church are like who they have this kind of
They're the epitome of
image that they
spiritual.
are showing that these are the people that actually do this on a basis, but they also are struggling. And our hustle culture is dictating that because of our work, because of our responsibilities, we give all of our energies to these things, disregarding, or like, when the day ends we're already tired. We don't have time for ourselves, just so that we can personally reflect on. And it's actually a call, and this is something which I have what do you call this, reflected on personally just recently, because after all it's a discipline. I'm going to the terms because without discipline there's no growth also. Sometimes you have to take it painstakingly.
Okay. To get to that level
Yes.
of growth in relationship.
But there are times that yeah, we can consider attitude factors. Sometimes we don't feel in the mood or like things like this. But like I said also, we have to do it painstakingly.
Okay. Yeah, I think what I got from what you said also is that no one's an exemption to this. If you are someone just seeing people doing so many things, you're like, I wish I was like him or like her. No one's an exemption. People always on stage, in the background, in the mission field, we are, all vulnerable, susceptible to being trapped into this hustle culture. And so that's why spiritual discipline is a must. Okay, so in that regard, would you have maybe some, yeah, we can now go to the practical side. You mentioned the
Yeah,
ideal
yeah.
and the practical. Yeah, so can you
Yes,
share
so
some
like I
tips?
mentioned a while ago, like some methods that they can actually, exercise spiritual disciplines. You can incorporate doing things.
Okay.
Or one practical suggestion I also received was, you do these spiritual disciplines at the peak of your of when you feel most energetic, or of when you feel that you are most attentive. Some would say it's the early part of the day. That's why, it's like a general practice or things like that. Or how about, let's try to deal on examples like at the end of the day, you need to also have a personal reflection or things like after your work, after your, you're tired from that. So you can do it, in between. Right? So those are just some practical things. And it doesn't have to, monotonous in a sense that you have to do the same thing again and again. So that's why there are many things that you can actually do. So you can meditate for one day, and then the following day you can do something. You can write on something or things like that. So that's way how we can actually make things interesting despite you being bombarded with so many responsibilities.
Yeah. Or even perhaps trying it with a friend, right? I mean, if that works for you, helps you retain, remember, and serves like an accountability partner, kind of. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious of what do you think are, so for us who are in campus, who lives in AIAS, we are very privileged to be, worshiping in an environment where it is encouraged. So we are surrounded by co-believers. But how about for Christians, Seventh-day Adventists who are out there? I mean, they have their own work outside. Maybe they only see their friends every Sabbath. Yeah. So what do
Definitely.
you think could be their challenges, and what specifically, tips that maybe we can share for them, because their challenges are definitely different compared to us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the advantage of being in a campus. You are encouraged. The environment is very suitable for you to actually be able to exercise such spiritual disciplines. But in the case of like you are situated in a city or some things like that, you're very close to the busy life, and you are very close to a lot of temptations. So that's why it has to be geared personally, that you need to set time to be able to do this, regardless of the distractions. I've heard and I've seen also some examples that some, while on their way to work, they actually listen to prayers, or like they listen to messages, just so that they could, you know incorporate things, so that they can make use of time. But no, there will be no replacement. That's just my opinion. There'll be no replacement to a personal setting aside of time, regardless of whether you are, full of things to do. It may not be a lot, like say a couple of minutes will do. Reading a certain verse will do. It doesn't have to be like you have to sit down and like, you need to be able to. That's a problem with pastors, I guess, or those who are trained in theology, because once they see something, they want to exhaust everything. I personally
Struggled with that.
yeah, and also my friend also struggles with that, because after seeing something, you want to delve into. But yes, like I said, there's the difference between those who are like extremely busy, who are situated in an environment where it's you have to work immediately. Yes, I would suggest incorporation. Also, this take time to know when you best operate.
Your peak hours.
Yes, yeah, when you best operate, and then that's when you can pause for a while. Another thing, I would be careful in giving this comment, because I don't want to be indulgent. You incorporate it into your me time.
Okay.
The me time there, what I'm trying to say is that you're just too filled with work, and you just want to spend time with yourself. But this me time is not overindulgent, just to indulge the senses, just to like this, just so that you'll enjoy yourself. No, this me time, you include yourself, of course. That's you, of course. That you can pause for a while. The hustle culture is a disadvantage in the sense that there is no time for you to actually reflect, or like give or allot to the more important things in life. When your only very focus is actually just achieving a certain goal, or like there are just too many things. So that's why I can say that's a disadvantage. But an advantage in itself, you are purpose driven, you are goal driven.
That's
so
true.
there's
Yeah, I like that.
Sides to it. There are sides to it.
Okay, so hustle culture is not entirely bad, right? There are pros and cons to that. And I think, yeah, we can always maximize the good stuff from that, which is, being purpose driven. So if you are goal driven to your career, then that can also work for your spiritual life. So, and we've heard from this discussion the importance of keeping that intimate time. And this also goes back to our previous episode, right, about personal devotional. And what's interesting here is that it's not there's no like one formula that, oh, okay, I'm facing business, maybe I should there's this, let me just open and say this verse and I'll be all right. I mean, it's not like
Mm-hmm.
as easy as that. It takes time, right? Like what you said, and it's highly customized as to how you work as a person, depending on your peak hours and, yeah, all of those things. So, could you also share with us, maybe you have an experience, or maybe you know someone who had an experience of being stuck in this hustle culture. So it's, let's say, you are stuck there, you're very busy, but you don't know how to get out of that circle. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
what can you share about that?
Um, I would speak personally because I'm in that kind of culture, and sometimes my work responsibilities tend to go ahead. Basically, what I try to do is just to think of what are my priorities. I mean, I'm not only a student, but I'm also a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a believer of Christ. And what are my priorities? Some would say, what are my big chunks in life are?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can fill in the other portions in that certain jar. So like as a believer in Christ, basically that's my priority. No matter how many times I may have neglected or failed to do such responsibility, but at the end of the day, you know, I'm a Christian. This is what I should do. This is what is encouraged of me to do, so that I can also develop that strong relationship with Christ. And I would say yes, you know, there's no pain, no gain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't experience something that's you have to painstakingly do. You will not see the fruits of it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just one thing that came to mind also in terms of, like, practical things we can do. Well, for me personally, when I'm struggling with something that I really want to overcome and I just seem to cannot overcome it, of course, aside from prayer and reading, fasting can be one thing. And it does not necessarily have to be food. It can be anything that is actually taking your time from God. So knowing the distractions that you have, and different people have different distractions. One can
Mm-hmm.
have social media, the other academics, the other sports. We're all different. So fasting from that thing that you think is taking away so much of your time unnecessarily can be something that could be a starting point. Yeah, at least for me. um
So you should
yeah.
just take away all your distractions.
No, not
Then you will not be.
100%.
I mean, no, no, no. Then you will not be in the hustle culture. So
Oh.
actually, what's impeding us is these
Mhm.
distractions.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's the good side of hustle culture, because if you have things that you want to achieve and then you incorporate the important things in life
Mhm.
as well, then you can actually exercise it, right? But our generation these days, I think we have so many things that we want to get. So we're distracted.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, remove
And
those distractions one by one, little by little.
mhm. Yeah, so I also remember that illustration of a jar, which most of you have probably heard or seen. If there's a jar, you have like the big rocks and then the pebbles and then the sand. To make them all fit, you put in the big rocks first, right? And then the pebbles and then the sand. So I think identifying which ones is your big rock, which one is the pebble, and which one is the sand in your life, and then working, yeah,
Mhm.
towards that.
Definitely, I would agree to that.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about and covered a couple of things about spiritual discipline and how this plays in our culture, our context now. If there was one thing you can tell our audience, just one thing that they would remember from this discussion, what would it be?
It's so hard to incorporate it in one word.
It
But I'll
doesn't have
try
to be
to.
one word, just one thing. It could be
But yeah, but
sentence.
just the thought of that. The thought is that it's spiritual discipline. It's a discipline. Um, when we are learning, there are things that we also have to unlearn. So it like a discipline would require for you to do it on a basis that it would become a habit. That then you would find joy in actually just doing it. So I think that's one key thought that I would like to. In a hustle culture, spiritual discipline is important. So yeah, just deal on the importance of what that discipline is, or what discipline actually is,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll see the fruit of it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pastor, Mr. Adlai
You're welcome.
Wilfred Tornalejo. We enjoyed that episode. And of course, if any of you have any comments or even topic suggestions for us, we are here willing to listen to those ideas. So please let us know. And we also have an Instagram page where you can interact with us, and also you can listen to this not just on YouTube but also on Spotify. So once again, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.